Got a 2012 Chevy Traverse here. Got dropped off for a few issues. Number one is that the driver window doesn't go up or down, and they already shot the parts cannon at it, so they put all new switches on every single door. And they said, well, let me give you a little bit more backstory. So apparently she was having some issues with her transmission shifting. She called the dealer and they said, yeah, there's a software update for the TCM that could possibly fix that. So she took it in, she had the software update done to the computer, and she said, ever since you flashed my computer, all of my doors stopped working. She said her backup sensor stopped working, like it doesn't beep when something gets near, and her rear windshield wiper no longer works. So starting with the windows, what they did is they went on Amazon, I think, and they bought all new switches. And she said when she installed that switch, and the one for here, it fixed the issues with all of these windows except for the driver door. And what I'm noticing that I'm finding weird is that the passenger window goes up and down with that switch. The rear windows, I believe, only goes down with the switch, and it'll only come back up from the master switch. What I wanted to do was, since we have the main issue with the driver window, I wanted to start here. So of course I pulled off the door panel because she said she went ahead and ordered a new motor and window regulator. And I told her, whoa, like, stop shooting the parts cannon at this thing. Let's check it before you throw any more parts at it. So I don't have a wiring diagram. So the safe way to do this is just put in the legwork, take off the door panel, and get directly to the motor. You can see there goes the connector for the motor of the window. And I just simply grab my power probe, put power and negative on it, and the glass came down. And I switched polarity and the glass went back up, telling me that the motor and the window regulator is fine. Something's missing here, okay? Something in order for this switch to not work. By the way, this is also a brand new Amazon switch. I believe it looks like one. It doesn't look like OEM. So I'm like, okay, we know this works. Now we have to start figuring out what's missing from the switch in order for this thing to not work. So I see the power and the ground, or the, let's just say the two wires, because I believe they switch back and forth. Two wires going to the motor is a blue and brown, as you can see. And if we come over here to the main switch, there goes our big blue wire and there goes the brown one. So I started looking more closely over here. And isn't it kind of odd that we see the metal connector on the brown wire right there, whereas every other wire, you don't see the crimp connection on any of them. So of course I grab the brown wire that goes to the motor. And what do we have here? Oh my goodness. There's a problem, lady. The parts cannon shot at this thing for nothing. I told her, do you have the original switches? She goes, yeah, they're still at home. I'm like, good, keep them. I may need them. Because honestly, there's probably nothing wrong with these switches, and they most likely got rid of good original parts for like cheap Chinese aftermarket garbage, you know what I mean? So I went looking through this small box right here of just like random wires and connectors that I have, looking for a connector that would match up, but I can't seem to find anything. Everything is too thin gauge of a wire, and none of the little connectors that go onto the pins are the same. I found a window motor over here, so I decided to de-pin this one to see what the little connector pin looks like, and here it goes. And this does not fit. I tried it and it's just too thin. It's not going to fit into the original connector right here. So I'm not sure what to do. I did test it by pushing the brown wire back in where it belongs while I hit the switch, and indeed the window does go up and down. I just have to figure out what I'm going to do here to try to fix this. So I was able to find a solution. I did end up using the wire and the pin that came out of this spare motor that I had laying around. And as you can see, I got it inside of here. You're gonna have to excuse it being a different color, but I don't want to change the wire gauge just for the sake of changing the color, because it has to be a certain thickness. I got them tied up right there, just all ghetto, just for the sake of testing. And if we look inside of here, it's lower right pin. So it didn't fit inside of there perfectly, but I ended up bending the little tabs on the actual pin itself. I didn't want to alter the actual connector because this is attached to the car. You know, if you have to alter anything, do it to the part that's replaceable. In this case, it would be the actual wire and the little pin. But I found that it was kind of just sitting in place, like wasn't really retained that well until you install this white retainer clip. Once you put this in place, it locked down that pin and you can't pull this out. This thing's in there pretty good. and I plugged it in. Let's see if I can do this with one hand. So I plugged it in and it clips in very nicely, just like original. Here, right there to click. So like I said, I tied these two together just for the sake of testing. Let's go ahead, put the key in. All right, and if my pin is making connection and everything is working well, we should have a functioning window. Sweet. Let's go back up. All right, so everything looks real good here. I'm happy with the way this turned out. So let me show you the finished product. Here goes my connection. You can see the crimp and the heat shrink. Don't ask me why the heat shrink is so off center. I have no idea what I was thinking when I did that, but it is covering it completely. I got the key on right now, so let's go ahead and test it. Perfect. Let's go back up, and there we go. All right, so I just called the owner and told her to go ahead and cancel that window regulator that she ordered off of Amazon, I believe. So hopefully she can cancel it in time. So the driver window is all reassembled, and I noticed that ever since that window started working, now these in the rear of the car go up and down just as they should. Kill 3 birds with 1 stone. So the next problem I want to look into is the rear wiper. This looks like it's a wiper switch, but nothing happens. So this pushing it down seems to be turning on the wiper with the fluid, and pushing it up, I guess it's just to turn the wiper arm alone, but absolutely nothing happens back there whenever I hit the switch. As you can see, the wiper arm is like stuck. But you know what, the owner did mention that they were messing with fuses, and she said it was a pain in the butt to pull the fuse out, and I think she even showed me a little like a micro fuse. So before we go chasing our tail, let's check the fuse for this rear wiper. Okay, so this is the fuse that she showed me. It's a 20 amp and it doesn't appear to be blown. And looking at the legend right here, it's going to be the 4th fuse down. So if we look up inside of here, yeah, that 4th fuse is missing. You can see on the left side there we got the red, white, white, and then there should be a yellow fuse, which is this one. So let's go ahead, pop it back in, and see what happens with that rear wiper. All right, so as soon as I put that fuse in, I heard a noise back here that sounded like a wiper turning on. You know, like a dry wiper, like there's no liquid, so it just makes noise. Yeah, this is what I was hearing. Okay, so now that the fuse is installed, let's hit the switch again, see what happens. There goes the windshield wiper pump. I could hear it pumping. And absolutely nothing when I hit the switch. I got the rear panel removed, as you can see, and the wiper motor is unplugged. Well, I unplugged it, I should say. Not seeing any green crusties here. So I got sidetracked a little bit, but basically with the rear wiper, it seems to be working now. So I don't know what's going on with it. All I did was unplug it and plug it back in, and now whenever I hit the switch, it turns on, as you can see. I do believe this is going to be a faulty motor assembly, because you can see how it's actually resting in its neutral state, or its normal stop position, right? This is the first time it's doing that. Normally it would stop right here. So this assembly back here is acting weird, and the woman said when she had it, it wouldn't work at all until I unplugged it and plugged it back in, or did the same thing with the fuse up front. So for the first like 15-20 minutes, it was doing this when you turn it on, but it kept, oh, you see what it's doing now? It's stopping up here now. It happened right before our eyes. There it goes again. Nothing changed. It went from stopping here, working fine for like 2 minutes, and now it's stopping back up here again, as you can see. So there's nothing wrong with the wiring going to this thing. I think it's going to be a faulty wiper motor assembly, but for the time being it's working. The owner could decide if she wants to leave it or if she wants to replace it. Okay, so moving on to the next issue. She said The parking sensors don't seem to be working when an object gets nearby them, like they're not beeping. So I started backing up my car into the Nissan right here, and of course they start beeping. Seems to be working fine. I had someone walk behind the car while I had it in reverse. Again, they start beeping. So I talked to the owner. She's like, no, I'm talking about the front of the car. The front doesn't beep when like her husband would walk in front of it, or if she gets close to something. So I'm like, oh, the front of the car. I'm looking at this car like, where are the parking sensors? So this is blowing my mind because she's saying that the front parking sensors aren't working, yet I see no sensors on this car. If anyone's wondering, these are just screw holes for like where the license plate would be, and these are just like stick on like double-sided tape, like wind noise generators for like, I don't know, deer or something like that. But normally the parking sensors would be like right here and right here. Unless I'm crazy and I'm missing something, this car doesn't have front parking sensors. So I have no idea what the owner is talking about. I don't know, guys, but I'm not gonna lose sleep over that. Let's just move on. That seems like a waste of time. That's gonna be it for this video, guys. And like always, thanks for watching.